Greetings from the Asian Productivity Organization Secretariat. Welcome to all viewers to the APO's Productivity Talk, a series of webinar discussion on the topics on productivity. This talk is organized by the Asian Productivity Organization, APO. I am Arshoni Buana from the APO Secretariat, the anchor for today's talk. So productivity enhancement strategy should consider the importance of young people. Due to its potential and sheer number, the youngster can be relied upon in achieving socioeconomic progress. Unfortunately, overall unemployment rate for young people is usually 2 to 3 times higher than for adults. The economic investment of governments in education and training will be wasted if young people do not move into productive jobs that enable them to pay taxes and support public services. Self-employment and micro as well as small enterprise creation are the alternatives, or perhaps one of the ways that young people can actively explore to forge their futures. Enterprises are the places where the jobs are. Promoting a positive enterprise culture is also a way to facilitate youth employment, productivity, and at the end, the betterment of living standard. So our discussion today will focus on the importance of supporting youth entrepreneurship for productivity enhancement and how it should be done, considering the challenges, constraints, as well as potentials of involving youth to the productivity enhancement through entrepreneurship. Our talk today also covers success stories around the globe on the initiatives in supporting youth entrepreneurship. A particular highlight will also be given to the best practices emerging from Lao PDR, where there are known successes that can be shared. Our discussion will also be sharing an idea about entrepreneurial ecosystem for youth by drawing special reference to the practices and efforts from Lao PDR. To discuss about the subject, we are joined today from Vientiane, Lao PDR, by Miss Philaiphone Vongpraseuth, or Miss Philly. So, Miss Philly, glad to have you here with us. Hope you are always well and healthy.
Yes, Sabaidi. Sabaidi means hello in Lao, right? So hello, everybody around the world. And if you're watching this live, so hello there, and I hope you're doing well despite the pandemic today. Because I'm like fall into the routine of going to work, and home. So hardly going anywhere or having any travel done at all.
Thank you so much, Philly, for that greeting. Philly, she is the first female CEO leading a construction company to be listed in the Laos Stock Exchange. It was in 2017. With diverse backgrounds in private and development sectors, cultivating from working in private businesses, the World Bank, and Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. She has been contributing to many endeavors in development field, including the ones providing support to the development of youth entrepreneurship. Philly, she is also a chairperson for the ASEAN Corporate Social Responsibility Network for Lao PDR, putting the CSR at the heart of her business operations, as it can be seen and proven from the two businesses that she is currently managing. So with that introduction, I would like to invite now Philly to start with your sharing on the topic, please.
Sure, sure. Allow me to share the screen with the audience. Yes, as introduced by the MC for today, my name is Philaiphone Vongpraseuth, or you can call in short, Philly, and I'm a founder and CEO of the Solver Laos. We provide business development services and investment advisory. So today, I want to walk you through the journey of supporting the youth for the entrepreneurship pathway to increase productivity. And this presentation will break into four main sessions. I want to tell you as of why we focus on youth globally and in Laos. And then we'll show you some of the best practices that being implemented in other selected countries around the world. And then I will drill down to the case of Lao PDR. What are the practices that we have done and projects and interventions that we have implemented so far? And then I will walk you through the overall entrepreneurial ecosystem and giving you an example of what Lao entrepreneurial ecosystem is like and how can we improve. We can't claim that we are the most successful, but we are trying something and we're trying to drive the changes so that hopefully this key driver will actually support the youth entrepreneurship for productivities. So before that, I want to get it clear on the definition of youth because the UNDP define youth as those who are the person aged between 15 to 25 years. But for Lao PDR, according to the Lao Youth Union, the age will be 15 to 35 years of age. And most of the ASEAN countries will have close definition to the Lao Youth Union here. And why we focus on youth? Firstly, the number is striking, telling you the story. Based on the UN World Youth Report recently in 2020, the figures this year in 2020, today there is about 1.2 billion young population. So at the age of 15 to 24, according to the United States, United Nations definition. So it's like about 16% of the global population already. And then in another few more years, like 2030, this number will be increased by 7%. It's expected to be like 1.3 billion young populations. And if you imagine with me, this is just 15 to 24 years age gap. What about we increase the bandwidth from 15 to 35 according to the Lao Youth Union definitions? The number will be a much larger, possibly 20% of the young populations globally. So that's telling us something as of why we want to focus on them. So I want to drill down into the region and how the figures in the region look like. For example, in ASEAN, they apologize for not having the exact calculation of the age group, but we are using the definition in ASEAN of the statistic of 0 to 34 years of age. This one will telling you that the ASEAN is one of the youngest, having the youngest populations. For example, from Singapore ranging from 39% to the Philippines of having the young population of 65%. And when you compare to other countries of the world, for example, in India has 61% of the young populations. And then the average of the world young population is about 56%. And Laos is close to that. We have 57%. So 57, 56 is very close. So we are at the average of the world youngest populations in the world. So whether Laos or other region, the youth still be the main driver of the economy. And then when we look at the framework, statistics already tell you that surprising figures. But when we look at the framework, for example, the principle of the Agenda 2030 stated that no one will be left behind. That means youth has to be considered throughout all the sustainable development goals and targets. And youth often been mentioned in these four key areas. One is the youth unemployment. Second, adolescent girl initiative interventions. Then three, it's about education. And lastly, it's about sports for peace. Yes, sport for peace makes sense because youth are like they are active, they are energetic, they love, they have a large and high adrenaline, ready to compete at all times. So sport they mainly love to participate in that, and the young people are considered as a driver of change, the agent of change, where it is vital that we should focus on them in order to realize our future generations of changing the paradigm of green growth, sustainability, and equality that we seek for. And when, according to the World Youth Report in 2020, the theme of this report is about youth on social entrepreneurship and the 2030 agenda. It's highlighted that 600 million jobs will have to be created in the next 15 years in order to fulfill the youth employment needs. And then it's striking to know that 96.8% of the young workers in developing countries actually engage in informal economy. I will dig down into that in the later slide, and you will see as a why. The population the young people not in employment, education, or training or needs, NEET. For male, it's like 13%, and female is higher, 30%. And when we look at Lao PDR, it's 25% nationally. And when we speak about Lao females underutilized workforce, that will be more than 30%. And that's figures, statistics, and framework already tell you the World Youth Report that's trying to move towards the social entrepreneur. That's part of the one sort of entrepreneurship, also telling you this story, the story of youth being participated into already, and what are the needed to actually help them flourish and move forward and increase their productivity so that they can contribute into the economy of the countries. So that will need the entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship ecosystem to be very encouraging, very supporting. And when I talk about informal sector, let's take a look at the employment by the main economic sector. Here I give you an example of the case of ASEAN countries. So the ASEAN country, if you have a look at these three sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, and service sector, they are the main contribution for the economics of GDP, right? So when we look at this, we see the employment are concentrated for the country along Mekong region, like Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand. You can see right away that agriculture is the main sector that employs the most of youth population or youth workers. And then when you go to the second, it will be like the service sector and manufacturing sector. But when you compare to the more developed country like in Singapore, in Brunei, and Malaysia, the service industry employs the most of workers there. You see, this is the Lao figures. We see that almost 72% concentrated in agriculture sector. And that's, we'll see on the next slides here, when I take you to the Lao PDR case, you see that the contribution of GDP, the service sector that provide to the GDP, contribute to GDP is 40.64%. So over 40% of GDP contribution, but they only employ less than 13%. But when you look at the agriculture sector, the youth of workforce participation is actually like almost 72%. But look at the output that contribute into the GDP, that's only 16%. So if you look at this, you know right away that Lao PDR, where the productivity are lower, that is in agriculture sector. We have put so much input for such a little output. So that's why I say youth actually engage in informal economy. So agriculture in Laos, the young population, they stay home and help their parents to work on the farm. And they don't recognize as a job, and they don't recognize as a formal paid job because they don't get paid. They work to help their family to grow crops and to sell crops. And when they got the money, they just, the parents just give them part of it. And then when you look at when they don't get paid for that hard labor, they don't consider it as a job, and they don't pay tax. So that's why they consider as informal economic activities. And why we want to increase productivity? Why is it important that productivities that need to be enhanced in every area to help youth contribute to economic development of the country? Because productivities just tell you that with little input, you can have a larger output. For example, if you invest in the input of producing the products, less input, cheaper input, then you can produce much more outputs that serve the needs of the society better. The productivity is a main driver of the long-term economic growth. It's also the foundation to improve the wages, the living condition, and the income of the young population. And right now, we look at the digital economy transformation. If you look at the transformation, you will see right away that there are some productivity that we can gain from this, digital economy transformation. We can use tools and technology to increase the output with little inputs. And for the SME, to overcome and to help as well, we also want SME to contribute into the causes of social challenges, right? But there's also technology, new technology, and digital platform can also help overcome some of the challenges, being more productive about delivering of the services, for example, education, banking, and production efficiencies. And then if you talk about like poverty line, if they are more productive, they get out of what they actually produced. They can earn more income, their wages increased. That means it translates into one of the poverty dimension that they meet already, right? So that could lift them up from poverty line. And so the same as education as well. Education, right now, if you have a digital infrastructure, a good digital infrastructure, the internet that cover throughout the country, the young populations in the rural area can actually participate in online education. They can complete and not drop out of the educations, because now also we face a lot of dropouts. Primary and secondary school, we have lots of dropout going towards graduated from primary and go towards the lower secondary. We have lots of dropout, and we have lots of unemployment because they don't really participate into the formal education or formal workforce. Then let me walk you through the practices that around the world, what do they do? And this I will pick up some of the country as an example. The first one will be from China. China, let's take a look at China on how the government is doing to promote and support entrepreneurship practices in their country. With the central community of the Communist Youth League and all China Youth Federations, they're cooperating with the ILO, the International Labor Organization, back in 2005, using the tools developed by the ILO called Know About Business. They streamlined this as a curriculum in the colleges and universities. Up until today, I received the report from the KAB Center. They said till today, they have more than 11,000 teachers being trained. And then more than 1,700 universities participated in this program. And then more than 400 student clubs, entrepreneurship club has been established within the universities. And they also, counting on how many of youth have participated in this program. It's about 2 million of them that participate. And if you talk about 2 million in China, it might be a little, but that's of course on entrepreneurship stimulations or enhancement or promoting. It needs to start somewhere. And if this they do right now for the past since 2005 and they achieve this, I think the government has a lot to do with supporting this agenda forwards. And we can see the case of China, they focus on the education side. And then within the education, they also promote like innovation fund, the boot camps that they can do. They actually raised like the investor and angel funding. They raised around one or over billion of dollars to actually fund the innovative startup of the Chinese students in the university. That is, if they've done well, they managed to get the university involved, they managed to get the investor and angel funders for the seed funding round involved. That means this agenda going to move forward pretty fast and pretty good. And the government themselves also have a policy to remove the barrier on registering the business. So people can register the business without having the capital ceilings, like a register capital ceilings. Back in the time, the government actually put the ceilings for that registered capitals, but now they remove such barriers so anyone can actually start their business with the little money that they have and they know that they can cover the operations of their business. And then allow you to actually try out whether the entrepreneurship is the real deal for them, whether that is the pathway that they choose. And if they find it not successful and they know that it's too tough and it's not into their characteristic, that means they can just keep up themselves. And the funding from the government or funding of themselves still like quite little of a loss as compared to we heavily invest in one business and then it failed. And then the second example is from Singapore. Singapore taking the approach similar to China. They're actually focusing on education as well. In the National University of Singapore, they're focusing on cultivating entrepreneurial spirit and entrepreneurship. And they're also having, promoting the STEM study as well. The student can form the Entrepreneurship Society Club and they can help each other on fundraising and coming up with innovations kind of project that they can, stir up and enjoy and, jump into the entrepreneurship ecosystem or startup ecosystem. And then they have a boot camp or campfire where they can cultivate, organized by the National Youth Council of Singapore. They target a young age at 18 to 35 and they can join the entrepreneurship or volunteer or social enterprise apprenticeship to learn more about enterprises, to know about spiritual of the entrepreneur and what it takes to become a good entrepreneur. And then the third is Youth Business Singapore. Youth Business Singapore also focusing on developing young population into making them as a champion of communities, getting them invest in a business that matter, that associate with the sustainable development goals. So mainly like they're promoting social enterprise, which is make the young populations more keen into looking at how sustainability in the society they want to be part of, how to overcome my business, overcome the social challenges that I wanted to be part of and contribute to the country economy and socio-economic landscape. Let's take a look at Europe side, the European Union. So at the European country, they're focusing on the enabling environment because the educations, they're actually having a good curriculum on the entrepreneurship curriculum in the secondary school up to university and tertiary education and training. So they focus very much on the thing that needed most is enabling environment, allowing youth to actually participate in the startup, participate in the economic and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Like for example, this case of Finland, Hungary, Ireland, Netherlands, and Spain, they actually has a policy measure drafted around three main pillars. One, they fostering the mindset and culture of the young entrepreneur. You know, they wanted people to really wanted to, to enter into self-employed. And then second, they produce information. They make it public information, country information, data available to use to everybody, so that when you want to start a business, you need an accurate and reliable and up-to-date data to help you decide whether what kind of market you want to go to, what kind of product you want to produce, and what are the needs of the society. How can I solve the society issues, the challenges they face, and that's how startup coming into life to solve social issues and the environmental issues. And thirdly, the government actually removing the barrier out of the entry barrier for youth to actually being able to participate and contribute into economic activities. As of the case of Lao PDR, I take you to look at the government side as well as the development support side as well, because we also work hand in hand together between the government, the private sector, and also the development sectors. The government has recently, like last year, the youth development strategy just been endorsed. And then in that particular strategy, they talk very much about supporting the young entrepreneur, making the youth realize that not just only working with the civil society, because if you know Lao PDR, if you read the report on what kind of job the young people or newly graduate want to tap into, 90% of them will tell you that they want to work for the government because the status there portrayed much better. They have a high status, people respect them, and a long-term, sustainable and secure job. Then little of people or young population want to tap into self-employed or become an entrepreneur because they think that starting a business will cost them a lot of money and they don't have such funding to go and start their dream of becoming a self-employed. It just don't feel like it's secure for them. That job of being an entrepreneur is unsecure for many of the youth. And then there is in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce also have a newly added divisions on entrepreneurship promotion and support, so which is very good. The government also have SME promotion fund that we can apply the funding with a low interest rate of 3%, for example. They have the Young Entrepreneur Association, which is supported by the Youth Union to establish and support a lot of capacity building, putting the young entrepreneur into the space and platform of international platform, especially in China and ASEAN, to make the voice of the Lao young people heard. Then they have also the program from the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare on reskilling the young population that return, the migrant worker returned from Thailand and Malaysia during the COVID. We have like around 500,000 of them. There's a lot. They haven't been able to return back to work in particular countries, but then we wanted to retain them because Lao have very, very small populations, and also, we are shortage of skilled workers as well. We want to retain these people back in the home country, and then supporting entrepreneurship is also one way to create more jobs to accommodate such people who return the migrant worker. And the job center, the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare work with the ADB to actually establish job center in every province. The job center actually still lack of momentum there's still lack of the users. People do not dare to actually walk into the government office to seek for help, So they don't want to go into the formal space to actually seek help and ask questions. They feel intimidated. So what the development sector has tried to help with the youth unemployment, they actually have like a Lao business environment project funded by USAID. USAID actually helped the young entrepreneur who started like the past 2 years of starting the business to actually apply the capacity development, technical development, some of the official or international standardization certificate that they can enhance their credibility, and also some of the seed funding to expand their business further. And there's also the SDC, the Swiss Development for Corporation, also under the implementation, they supported, they funded under the implementation of Habitus. They actually have this project called Lao Rural Advisory Service. And this project has a small component called Entrepreneurship for Green Rural Enterprise and Economy scheme that I was involved and designed and implement and monitor, and also now a mentor for this project. We have like SDC funded also, but Swiss Contact are the ones who are implementing this program. We call it VTES, the Vocational Training and Employment Support Service. This will provide with the youth like 15 to 35 to actually gain, they call it having to learn to plan for their future. They are dropped out from after primary school. They drop out. They don't enter into higher secondary school. So these are the target of the project, and the project helped them to actually having a future plan for themselves and a personal investment plan, so that whether they want to re-enter into the technical training so that they can integrate it back into workforce, or they wanted to have a technical training and then entrepreneurship training so that they become a self-employed and own a small shop back in their hometown. They will also have Youth Innovation Challenge Fund. This is like a startup for UNDP. I was a mentor for that project as well. It's still ongoing. We still haven't concluded on what granted to be given. And lastly, I was involved with the Job Center. This is like a private NGO and UNDP partnership. We want to create an environment where the young people, young population, and newly graduated walk into the service center that are not the government environment. We open this center for them, allow them to actually come and seek help online or walk in person. So this center will be open in December 10 this year. And then for the best practice in Laos, let me move you to the project. I give you the example of the project of the Agreed, or the Entrepreneur for Green Rural Enterprises and Economy scheme, or Agreed. The Agreed is funded by SDC, as I mentioned before, and implemented by Habitus, and in partnership with the Department of Technical Extension and Agro-Processing, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. Actually, they targeted this intervention targeted the youth at the age of 18 to 28 years old. They do not care about whether you have to graduate from university or college, but as long as you can read and write, and have the drive to become an entrepreneur or wanting to be employed, then they can submit their application to the project. The interventions first implemented in Siêng Khoang province, also earlier in Luang Prabang province. The one that I involved in is in Siêng Khoang province since 2019 until now. We have three batches of youth already participate. In total, in three batches, about 65 of them has entered into the entrepreneurship or business plan development training, go through the internship and apprenticeship and a short course. It depends on where they want to do. They want to be apprenticeship, they want to do internship, or they want to go into the short course to enhance their technical expertise in particular productions or products and services before they actually apply for the business and grant for implementing their business idea. And the projects already distribute 36 seed grants to 36 entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneur already. And within 6 months, they already break even. Right now, they actually like almost coming to 1 year of implementation of batch number 1. So they actually in the profit realization phase already. So which is I'm happy for them. And they also have regular mentorship and regular follow-up by the local or provincial youth union and project team. And also I'm also their mentor. If they wanted to, like online, they can call me or WhatsApp me and ask any of the questions in regarding to the hardship or obstacle or troubleshooting that they may have on running a small enterprises. The intervention of GRI actually go through this cycle. The first, we have a call for proposal. The first batch we received 171 applications, and then we drew down or selected for interview, shortlisted for 40 youth. After the shortlisted, we do the health check, we do the account opening and all that, and then we shortlist them to 24 youth who will then go on internship, apprenticeship, or a short course technical training. Then they come back from the short course or from like internship and apprenticeship, then they're ready to actually sit in business development plan and startup training. So the 24 of them join the startup training, the business development plan. They have to develop the small, simple business plan and then submit to the project team. And then they will be selected. On the first batch, 9 out of 24 has been selected, and they're being given the seed grants for themselves to start a business. And then they'll have a regular mentorship program happening throughout their 1 year cycle. And on my right-hand side is a female grantee or a grantee who actually received the grant of this intervention. She received about $1,000 to actually run an integrated farm. She grows the organic seasonal vegetables, as well as raising frog and fish to sell. And she also tells her target products and target income that she will sell to gain this income to make it break even of $1,000. She's already beyond profit at the moment, and she's also come back to help with the second and third batch of the young entrepreneur who actually join and participate in the program. So she in turn become the mentor, and other candidates as well. For example, this is the YouTube, but it's about like 8 minutes long, so I will not be able to show you here, but there's a link here at the PowerPoint. You can have a look, and then you can click or search by the name, agree, and then you can watch such the YouTube videos. Basically, in that video, we show you that how the youth has go through the cycle that I just mentioned, and then they attend, the photo up top there, they attend the entrepreneurship training to develop their business plan, to develop their entrepreneurial spirit. And then those two down at the bottom are another 2 out of 9 grant received grant or the grant awardees. She's the monk at the group who raised piglets to sell, and then for the young male here, he actually do the fishing farm, and these two already purchased a small cars already to actually deliver their products to the city because they live in the remote districts. And they are also now, they are not only an entrepreneur, they are the trainer. So they become a trainer for the next, like the next batch, the batch number 3, number 2, number 3. They actually mentor them as well. They provide advisory on how to write a business, how to start a business, how to overcome an obstacles. So basically the big sister and brother actually giving them an advice on how to run a business and how to overcome, basically mental distortions of, when you stumble on the hardship, what should you do? How do you deal with it? And then I'm very happy to see that they are able to train on the technical expertise on fish raising and pig raising as well. So they become a teacher. But in terms of the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, as a policymaker, there are so many aspects, but I want to stress these 3 key areas. The first one, I think taking the lesson from China and Singapore, I think to strengthen the talents and also the skills are a must, because for you to actually establish a self-employed, you have to have some sort of technical strength and technical expertise to actually start your way to become an entrepreneur or small micro enterprises. And then secondly, promote the entrepreneurship and healthy ecosystem. And this is really the case of like European Union, that they're trying to promote enabling environment for you to actually remove the entry barrier for youth so that they can tap into this genre or sphere of become an entrepreneur and to contribute into productivity of economic activities that they could participate in. For example, moving out of the agriculture a little bit and move into service sector, for example. And thirdly, address informality, because informal business or informal economy actually hurts the formal one because they don't pay tax. But of course, they are necessary because they allow to, they allow more people to afford cheap products, cheap price. They can serve the lower quintile of the poorest of poor, but they also have a lot of number of them, right? But then when you think of the government, they actually don't pay tax to the government. They don't go through those formal system, whether they want it voluntarily, don't want to go to formal channel, or they have a barrier for themselves to actually enter into the formal channel. And I think like more than half of them wanted to be in the formal channel because they've been protected of their rights of their product. They can be supported and access to different financial support, for example, banks and other like development fund, entrepreneurship development fund that, or seed grant that the government will give them. If they are not registered, as an enterprise, they will not be able to actually tap into this. And they also don't have, collateral to actually, provide it to the banks as well for the credibility that banks actually seek. This is the ecosystem of, Lao entrepreneurial ecosystem. When you look at this, I classified it into eight area. The government policy, I already mentioned before about the entrepreneurship promotion division. They have the youth development strategy, SME promotion. They also have business advisory facility or business assistance facility that the young population who start their business can acquire technical assistance, capacity building with half of the price that they could pay. So they have like help 50% paid for what they apply. If they want to acquire or recruited electronic software or accounting software system, they can pay half price, and the business assistance facility can pay half price to help them. And they also the place where they seek business development service like myself, or the business support service to help the young entrepreneur who actually start their business. And the funding apart from SME promotion fund and the fund that provided by development sector, the development partner like World Bank, ADB, SDC, GIZ, and USAID. Apart from that, youth find very, very hard to access to finance to start a small enterprises. And this area actually Laos and around the world actually need to come across. And the cultural, right now the culture that prevent women from participate into the entrepreneurial ecosystem still exists. Women supposed to stay home, help the parents with the household chore. You cannot go out to do a business. You have to take care of the family, and then the farming if they are in agriculture and rural poor. And with the support system, we do have those Chamber of Commerce. They have association. A lot of business association happen established in Laos, and a lot of club and network that can help. But that is for elite, but it's not for the startup, and it's not for the newcomer, like the young people who has no network. They can't just tap into this kind of association or club, right? So that would be a burden for them. That's why they find hard to actually find the mentor for themselves, to the role model and mentor that they can tap into the support. And then in Laos, we do not have a proper incubator and accelerator centers that can help incubate the young or startup basically. And the university, the curriculum we have, although recently we actually have, they call it the English course for the business administration, try out just one course at National University. But all the other will be the Lao language, and the curriculum still far behind to catch up with this digital economy transformation, let alone the future of work that we have to tap into. The curriculum are not there yet. The way of teaching delivery also do not accommodate and flourish or promote that future of work preparedness for the young graduates. Education and training is the same. It's become bothersome for young people right now because the traditional way of teaching, spoon feedings are not suit right now. They can go online, they can see something better, and they want actually the mentor to actually help them. They want the enabling environment that can help them pursue their dream as a self-employed. In Lao PDR human capital, for example, 37% of youth fall under underutilized workforce or need. And then access to market, we still have restrictions or burden or barrier for access to market internationally and regionally. Because why? Because we actually don't have a good quality products, to actually export our products. We have a niche, but we are not at that high standard and credible enough to produce at that standard. So we are working on it. The Lao government and National Chamber of Commerce and also the Ministry of Industry and Commerce actually work with the International Trade Center in Switzerland to actually promote more and help capacity buildings in the country for those standards and policy for becoming a good quality exporter tap into the international market. And for conclusion of my presentation, I want to stress how important youth are because they are the agent of change. They are the future of innovations. With youth populations and digital economy, we need young people, much more of the self-employed with the entrepreneurial spirits to actually facilitate a lot of innovation to help solve the social and economic hardship that we are facing nowadays. Youth employment is critical. There are still a high number of youth unemployment, and that's why we need to promote the youth entrepreneurship and support them, because entrepreneurship, self-employed, is part of employment. So that at least give them alternative job to actually tap into and make it an enabling environment to support them when they decide to do so. And then having a good mentor and coach for them to actually succeed along their pathway. And then, public information is also a crucial data, especially like big data, AI data, and a lot of information, access to finance data are actually crucial parts of access to information for them to be informed, for the young people to catch up with the new trends faster. And that's my key point for today. Thank you very much, and it's the end of my presentations. Thank you.
So thank you for the sharing, Philly. I think there are some interesting point that we can follow up for the discussion. The first thing that
Yes.
I would like to touch upon is basically the education system. I think you have mentioned it before. The importance of the correct um, human capital development strategy. But I would like to know, in particular, what is your view with regard to the current education system? Does the education system, you know, equip the youth with adequate skills, knowledge to grow their entrepreneurial spirits? If I would like to perhaps to to dwell further with that, if what is it the current situation now in Laos in that regard?
Okay. Well, as I said, a lot of you see the self-employment path or entrepreneurship pathway is it's a scary. It's not secure job. It's a risk taking. So
Mm-hmm.
if we actually promote, like, you know promote them as, for example, this is the alternative, this is the system to actually supporting you, and we are hand holding you to actually, your fail is okay, your success even better. If they feel that way, then I think it will be more successful in stimulating and supporting youth entrepreneurship. And in the case of Lao, it's the same. When we look at the doing business, um, doing business ranking of Lao, we actually like very at the bottom, 154 out of 189. We rank very, very low. So with that, actually, I wanted to reiterate that if we wanted to promote them, Lao also have a long way to actually promote the enabling environment. We have a lot to do, especially in Lao. We also have a hardship on entry barrier on business registration. So this is one of the examples from Laos that I could share with you. Yeah.
So, all right, this is perhaps in relation to that. Is there any example that you could share with us so that the viewers can perhaps can share it and also can hopefully they can implement it. This is example about successful entrepreneurship education programs, particularly for secondary and tertiary education. If something that you could share, perhaps from Lao PDR or from other countries that perhaps we can emulate in some other places, please.
Yes. So in the curriculum, for example, I think it's very best to actually streamline that entrepreneurship curriculum into lower secondary school upwards. Not only wait until tertiary, because the entrepreneurial spirit has to come when they're very, very young. So if you actually can tap into that, I think it will be great. For example, in Singapore, they started right now also. And then in Europe, some of the European countries also started to have, student fairs, for example, like in primary or secondary school, they have the fairs, and then they have a competitions in the school where they can come up with the innovations idea of conducting the fairs and, produce a small food stall or service or products that they can sell, and the success of that, who raised the most fund out of their idea, will actually tell them, teaching them how to become a small, what I call it, the junior entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that. Perhaps taking Lao PDR as a focus here, or perhaps the practices from some other developing countries that you know, um, uh, are the individual intentions or skills in Lao PDR or in other developing countries are enough to activate to activate entrepreneurial activity? Do you think? I mean, I'm just trying to focus, narrow it down to the individual level now. Whether there is enough basis in terms of intention and skill, to embark in this entrepreneurship journey. I would say
Yeah.
your view about
Okay,
this,
I give
please.
you the closest example is myself. I'm an entrepreneur myself. So the intention, the needs and want to drive to become an entrepreneur and having the skills to do so are not enough. They need to have a network. For example, in the Lao case, if you want to start a business, you need to have a network. It's about who you know, it's not about what you know. So it's a totally different demographic and paradigm here, right? In the business sphere, you need to know people. You need to have a larger network in order for you to actually um, distribute your product and services, and then to gain like a word of mouth of recommendations for your services. And also the secondly is the most important also is enabling environment that the government could facilitate us to actually grow our network and tell us show us the way on how to do things better in the legal way basically, because everybody want to participate in the formal channel anyway. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
Mhm.
Let's move on further toward different types of entrepreneurship, commercial and social.
Yeah.
I just would like to check with you, which one is the most common entrepreneurial endeavor in that we can find in Lao PDR or some other developing countries? Is
Well,
it
globally.
commercial or entrepreneurship?
Mhm.
Social entrepreneurship, and then if you could also give the reason why that kind of type of entrepreneurs are actually there in the first place.
Statistically, it's about, I think there are more commercial enterprises than social enterprises
Mm-hmm.
globally. Uh, it's the same happen in Laos. We have more commercial enterprises rather than social enterprise. And social enterprise in Laos is just happening in the last few years. It's considered quite new for the country as well. Um, as a result of promotions of the development partner. So that's why this happened. People are being more responsible. And I think based on the World Youth Report 2020, and also the landscape of entrepreneurship has changed. The ecosystem also changed. Like for example, in Singapore, there are also more and more of social enterprise. In Laos, also the social enterprises keep increasing, and globally, the social enterprise has increased a lot in numbers in recent years. The reason behind it is because the consumer is actually getting smarter. They want to buy a product that is from a company that are ethical, having a highly integrity, social and environmental friendly. So if you have that, your products become value added, and then our as a consumer, for example, they're getting smarter. They want something better. They also want to spend the money that contribute to better cost and good cost. If they buy this product, and then it contribute to a dollars contributing to a meal of a child in Africa, in Laos, in any part of the world, then I would do it. I think you would do it too. Yep.
Right. I think the next question is perhaps you can answer it very easily because you yourself are actually an entrepreneur. So, in your views, what are actually the characteristic of successful youth entrepreneurs?
Hmm. Based on what I work a lot with the young entrepreneur in Xiangguang province, for example, I saw that the successful one actually start with the drive, the need, like you see in their eye that they want so much of becoming a self-employed. So the needs and wants have to come within. And the secondly, they have to be very open-minded because you need to be listening more on what's going on out there, what the customer wants, who actually are playing a key player in the spheres. So what are the skills that I need to reskill or upskill myself in order to run the business successfully? And the third one is the risk taking. So this is a characteristic I think it's quite important to become, an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur themselves.
Hmm. The next question is perhaps the last question that I have on my list. It's about the young women entrepreneurs, which are more likely to be, constrained by certain kind of
Yeah.
limitations. So young women entrepreneurs are more likely to be, motivated by necessity rather than really the real entrepreneurial spirit itself. Usually they just own, smaller enterprise compared to the the male compatriot, and perhaps they are performing with a lower productivity. So, in other dimension, they are also facing unique constraints, because they need to provide childcare responsibilities, because there are cultural norms or dimension that they need to sort of respect to. And what is your view, with regard to this, to overcome these challenges, this particular this the specific challenges, that is being faced by young women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, as a female entrepreneur myself, yeah, we have it harder. We have it harder than male entrepreneur because we have less network and we also have the responsibility at home. Like for example, being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter of your parents, for example, you have, and if you live in rural area, that means the daughters need to stay home, cannot go further with the higher educations because no one will take care of the siblings and of the farm work. So the constraint there pull them back of becoming a productive entrepreneur. Even to start a business, they're still reluctant because that is they have a lot on their shoulders. But I would not say that that should be an excuse for a woman to actually start a business. I think a lot of external and internal factors come into play. For example, the internal factor, for example, women, we actually the most patience, the most, retail, like very detail oriented, very patient, very soft and nice. So we are good at service mind already. And when you have, and then they're good with money as well. If you give the money to the woman, they divide it among their household expenses, right? The child care, the school for the kids, the food, and other utility bills, for example. So in themselves, they are a good entrepreneur, a better entrepreneur anyway. But then the external factor that should facilitate or support them is the enabling environment. For example, if you go to banking, access to finance, the regulations on policies supposed to support them. If you are a female entrepreneur and you want to start a small micro enterprises, you have, for example, 1 or 3% of the interest rate loan for your short-term loans. And if you actually break even before 6 months or 1 year, we actually give you a discount of the interest rate as well because you are able to repay back your loan earlier, and that will be a better credit scoring for them. And then they can acquire more of the finance resources for their expansion phase. This is just example of one example that I could come up. Yes.
So I think now we are reaching toward the end of our talk. Of course, we would like to express gratitude to your sharing, Philly, and perhaps if I would like you to kind of say a few words, kind of your last messages, the key conclusion, the key points of the talk to all viewers, please.
Yes, my key messages today is probably being open-minded, pursue what you want, and be more productive in terms of using technology, leveraging what we have now, and then we can even sit anywhere and become an income earner or income generator. So that's my key messages for me. For the young people out there, be passionate, um, take risk, don't be scared. It's a lot of support out there for you. Don't be scared. Take the risk. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all those words. The encouraging words. The passionate is something that's something that we need to do in all the endeavors that we have as human beings, particularly for this
Yeah.
in growing the entrepreneurial spirits for the young. So with that, I would like to again express our gratitude to you, Philly, for your sharing your knowledge and also experience with us. So to all viewers, please do not forget to leave your comments and question on our YouTube channel down below. We'll try to get back to you as soon as we could with our response to your questions. So finally, be productive, be well. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. สบายดี Bye bye.